Aging, orgasms, and cross-country skiing in Maine. What do they have in common?
Well, many things, Rob, but mostly they are all three topics in the February issue of Down East Magazine. Brian Kevin joins us with some lovely insight here.
Yeah,
It's
amazing what you can get under the umbrella of this state.
So many great things. Let's start with cross-country skiing, though, because lots of beautiful places, and you picked some of the best places to go in Maine.
Yeah, we picked out 10 of our favorites. This is a great state for it because we have rolling terrain, diverse terrain, seaside terrain, and a really sort of active community of cross-country skiers and of groomers, which are key. And so you can go everywhere from, you know, Acadia and be skiing within a view of the ocean on some of the best trails. There's a beautiful image of people skiing around Eagle Lake, which is groomed, all the way out to the Western Mountains. So we picked about 10 of our favorites. No way exhaustive, but some great spots.
I love the idea that is conveyed, the phrase I think that the writer used in the article about Acadia is that by getting out onto the carriage trails in the winter, when there are so few people in the park, you see a side of Acadia that few people ever see.
And this is, I mean, Acadia is one of my favorite places to ski, and I make the case that it's one of the best places to cross-country ski in the country because the carriage roads were designed to accommodate horses, and so the grades are really friendly to cross-country skiing. They were also designed by Rockefeller and his cohorts to maximize scenic potential, and so you really can't go wrong.
You picked 10 destinations for cross-country skiing. We'll just hit on two because we have pictures for some of the others. So Acadia is one we mentioned. Sugarloaf is a place that people think of for downhill skiing. It has terrific cross-country skiing.
I don't downhill or alpine ski at all, so I have never been on a hill at Sugarloaf, but I love the Sugarloaf Outdoor Center, in part because it's so vast you can wander out there. I think 56 miles of groomed trail, or 50-something miles. It's the biggest network in the state, and you can go, you know, 2-3 hours without seeing another human being.
You also give people tips on how to get back up if they fall and what to wear, including the fanny pack, which apparently is back now.
The fanny pack never left if you're a cross-country skier, but yeah, I mean, the package, in addition to sort of showing some beautiful photography in some of our favorite places, is geared towards folks who maybe are embarking on this for the first time. So it's a great sort of primer.
Okay, let's move on to our second big topic. Wilhelm Reich spent some time in Rangeley and sort of some experimentation.
If you have not been to the Wilhelm Reich Museum in Rangeley, Wilhelm Reich is an Austrian psychoanalyst and later biophysicist who emigrated to the United States and has a sort of all-encompassing theory about a substance he calls orgon, which is maybe most comparable to the Taoist notion of qi, and that it's this all-pervasive life force that powers both the human orgasm and life on a cellular level.
He was an extremely controversial character, and now a documentary has been made about his life. It's called Love, Work, and Knowledge, The Life and Trials of Wilhelm Reich. And what's remarkable is how much money was raised by people who are devotees of Wilhelm Reich to make this possible.
So Wilhelm Reich is, you know, his psychoanalytical theories are pretty well regarded. He was an acolyte of Freud's. He has also been called everything from a pseudoscientist to a fraud to simply, you know, misguided. But he has folks who powerfully believe in sort of restoring his credibility in the life sciences and in other fields. And there are enough of them, and they're passionate enough that the folks producing this documentary raised about $250,000 to tell what they would say is sort of the truthful side, that his later in life persecution, his books were burned by the FDA, he was sort of chased out of Rangeley in a sense, he died in prison, sells short. So the film just premiered in New York in January. It will show in Maine this summer, and it's touring like the festival circuit later this year.
Okay, moving on to aging in Maine. We know that Maine has kind of an older population, but that can be a good thing. That can work toward our advantage.
So this was kind of the marquee feature in the issue, and I had the opportunity to talk with Jessica Maurer, who's a co-founder and executive director of the Maine Council on Aging. And the conversation we had around the office is that we're always hearing about Maine's aging population, but we tend to hear of it as sort of a scare boogeyman thing, like, oh, our healthcare costs are going to go up, or we're going to lack working age folks to fill these jobs. And what we got to talking about was, A, how can we explore the statistics that you hear about this phenomenon in a way that has a little bit more depth, and then also, what are the potential positive side effects or unexplored side effects of having a population that by 2030, you know, is predicted to be maybe a quarter 65 and up?
So give us just one takeaway on that of what are some of the positive things that can maybe be brought out of this.
So the case that Jessica Maurer and others in her circles make is that these sorts of community developments and infrastructure investments and cultural changes that help older folks in Maine age in place and remain in the workforce, which we're going to need, are also the kinds of developments that younger folks want, that parent-age folks want, that millennials and Generation Z or whatever we call those guys want, which includes but not limited to more progressive workforce policies that allow job sharing or that allow better family leave policies. They're walkable communities. They are road and street safety. They are multifamily housing. They are opportunities to invest in sort of like co-op models of businesses that communities value that might not have the workforce that we're going to need. So her case and others is that Maine has an opportunity as we figure out how to cope with this demographic shift to put in place some progressive policies that are going to make us leaps and bounds ahead of any like progressive urban center in terms of community livability. So it's a really interesting discussion. It goes on for pages and pages. We talked for a super long time. But if you've ever sort of wondered, how do we stand to benefit from this demographic change, this is a really good starting place. And I would encourage you to seek out more information.
We've got to leave it there. Brian Kevin from Down East Magazine. Thanks as always, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
Stay with us. We'll be back with more right after this.